Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, I am not at school again today, but I wanted to make sure we could continue working with our exponential functions. So as you watch this video, have out your workbook pages that we started working on yesterday from pages 37 through 44, and we will get started. So yesterday we went through example 1. And we started talking about example 2. If we did not 100% get finished, we're going to quickly talk through example 2 again on page 40. So we have a bank account that has a starting balance of S dollars. It earns an annual interest rate, R, and is left untouched for N years. The account balance, B, can be calculated using the formula B equals S times 1 plus R to the nth power. Now remember, this 1 plus R portion is representing our base, which is representing the fact that this has a percent increase for the account. So after you look at our values, we need to plug in our initial value. So it says create a graph and use it to determine the account balance to the nearest dollar if the account starts with $100, which is our initial value, so that's going to be our S, has an annual interest rate of 5%, so that would be 1 plus 0.05, which is 1.05 to the nth power. Now, we're going to plug in 5, 21, and 25.7 for each of those n's. If you have not done so already, pause your video, plug those values in, and then come back and check after you have figured out what the values are at each of these year increments. After 5 years, you should have $127.63. After 21 years, you should have about $278.60. And after 25.7 years, we should have $350.40. Now, if we were to graph these, it would look something like this, where you can see a drastic increase in values. All right, let's look at example 3. A sport utility vehicle, SUV, was purchased for $25,000. According to an Automobile Dealers Association, the buyer can expect the SUV to lose approximately 10% of its value annually. The function f of x equals 25,000 times 9/10 to the x power describes the value of the SUV x years after its purchase. In this problem, they've already given us the equation that we're going to use to answer the following questions. The first thing we're asked is, does the situation described represent exponential growth or exponential decay? And how can you tell based on the function f of x? When we look at our equation, this portion right here, this 0.9, that's representing our percent. So because it's less than 1 whole, that means that it's going to represent exponential decay. Also, it says in the problem that it's going to lose approximately 10% of its value annually. So therefore, we know exponential decay because the SUV loses value. The next question we're asked is, what is the y-intercept of f of x and what does it represent? The y-intercept represents the initial price of the SUV, and looking at both our equation and the word problem portion, we are told that $25,000 is our initial value of the SUV. Now, after how many years will the SUV be worth half its original price? In order to determine this, what I want you to do in your calculator under Y1 is to put what half the value of the SUV costs will be, which is $12,500. So you're just going to have the number $12,500 under Y1. And then under Y2, I want you to put 25,000 times 9/10 to the x power, which is our equation that represents the amount of money that the SUV is worth after X number of years. After you've graphed those 2 points, you're going to look for the intersect of the 2 lines. So in your calculator under Y1 and Y2, this is what your calculator's screen should look very similar to. Remember, my calculator isn't as updated as yours, so your exponents will actually show as an exponent under Y2. After you hit graph, and when you hit graph, hit zoom stat, it should look something like this, where you can see the intersection of where you have Y equaling $12,500, because that's half of $25,000. And the other line here, this curved line, is representing the loss in value of the car over time. Now, to find your intersect, you need to hit second calc, number 5 for the intersect, and move your cursor really close to where these 2 lines are intersecting. Do that for the first curve, move it close to that intersection for the second curve, and then hit enter again one more time on guess and see where those 2 lines intersect. Once you do that, you should see the intersection is at these points here. So our Y value definitely is at 12,500, and we have quite a long value here for our X value. So we're going to round that and say that the intersect tells us about how many years until the SUV reaches half its original price. And I've typed in about 6.57, but really when I round it, it should be about 6.58. So sorry for that typo, that should be an 8 right there. Now back to our last question. In 8 years, how much could the owner expect to get for the SUV? So if we plug 8 into our equation, so plug it in for our X value, we get $10,762. Now, the next thing I'd like for you to do is practice the problems that are very similar to those that we've just done on pages 42 and 43. Make sure you're showing your work on pages 42 and 43. And then once you have your answers, I'd like for you to enter them into the bit.ly/capital E XPO capital EQ.